哦，冇誒，呢層嘅最哦，有係啦，有係啦，好，OK，係。Hi, good morning, everyone. Yeah, this morning is my joy to share the word of God with all of you, and my sermon title is "A World Without Wars." What do wars remind you of? Is it the Great War in Beijing, China? Or is the war between US and Mexico for blocking refugees from Mexico entering US? I don't know what is in your image. War symbolize restriction, barriers, pressures, and obstacles. It also represents protection. Our homes needs outer walls, and as the environment improves, more wall may be built, providing a sense of security and privacy. We know that human relationship can be complex, very complex, and we can experience disappointment in various settings, whether at school, in your workplace, at home, or even in the church. It turns out that becoming a follower of Jesus Christ necessarily make our relationship with others better. When we experience rejection, deception, or hurt in different relationships, we may build invisible walls in our hearts to protect ourselves and making us unwilling to connect with others. I'm not sure whether you have such kind of experience or not. Some may even choose to leave the church or their faith due to such kind of unpleasant experiences. Today's passage reminds us to practice loving one another in three aspects. The first one is God is the foundation of loving one another. That's in 1 John chapter 3, 16 to 17. Let's read the passage together. This is how we know what love is. Jesus Christ laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for our brothers and sisters. If anyone has material possession and sees a brother or sister in need, but has no pity on them, how can the love of God be in that person? Here in verse 16, Jesus Christ laid down his life for us. What does it mean? To lay down one's life means to sacrifice and give up one's life. This reference to Jesus laying down his life is to help us figure out what love actually is. We know love when we look at Jesus freely giving his life for all of us. Act of laying down one's life reminds me of just like parents who saved their children from disaster, demonstrating love. It also reminds me of those who donate their organs to save the life of strangers, displaying selfless love. Jesus Christ's crucifixions for the world is the ultimate act of selfishness and sacrifice. Christians use the love of Jesus as our model, learning to humble ourselves for the sake of others, treating each other with love. We all know that we tend to reject, or discriminate against people and things we don't know, or that appear different from us. But we must remember that we love because God loved us first. Everyone knows that Canada is a country of multi-nationalities and multi-races. The reason for building wall due to lack of compassion may not be the lack of love but rather fear. They might be physically disabled, homeless, beggars on the street, tattooed individuals, those with mental health issues, people of different races, or even people with different religions. I recall one day a guy pushed the bell, the church bell, and then asked, and then the guy told me that he needed food. Well, at that time, I was astonished, and I don't know how to help him. So I decided to take him to the one of the members of the parliament, very close, Ryan, very close to us. And then I introduced him to the members of the parliament office, and then let him to ask for help, and then to seek what the government can help him. War built our fear, make us indifferent and extraordinary towards others. God's love for all humanities is not determined by the color of our skin, or our gender, or our race, or our physical well-being. Moreover, even though we may be physically whole, we may have various barriers in our hearts and mind. Even though we do not make it in our appearance, but it's still stick inside our heart and mind. God loves us according to our true self, and we should learn to love others according to their true self as well. Love isn't about changing others. It's about accepting others just as God accepts us. Nowadays, there are thousands of Christian organizations in the world involved in peace-building efforts, reconciliation work, or humanitarian missions in conflict zones. These individuals and groups often work tirelessly to break down walls of hatred, violence, and division, seeking to spread the message of Jesus, love, and forgiveness. One notable example is Mother Teresa. She dedicated her whole life to serving the poorest of the poor in Calcutta, India. She broke down social, economic, and cultural barriers to show love and compassion to those in need. Despite the challenging conditions and widespread poverty in Calcutta. Mother Teresa and her fellow missionary provided shelter, food, and medical care to the destitute and dying. Remember, she served those who is dying, who is going to die. Even though a person is going to die, we feel that, oh, it's hopeless. But in the eyes of Mother Teresa, she thought that she's precious in the eyes of God. They care for individuals, regardless of their religious backgrounds or social status, embodying Jesus' teaching of love and compassion. If we haven't experienced God's forgiveness for ourselves, we may struggle to forgive others. That's true. If we haven't experienced God providing for our needs, we may not be as inclined to serve others in the same way. That's true also. If we can't see the kindness of God has shown us, we may struggle to show kindness to others. That's the truth telling us in the Bible. Love originates from God Himself. The more we experience God's love, the more we realize that we can share God's love with others. Brothers and sisters, let's remember, God is the foundation of loving one another. The second aspect that we learn from this passage is fearless in doing what pleases God. 1 John chapter 3, 18 to 20. Let's read it together. Dear children, let us not love with words or speech, but with action and in truth. This is how we know that we belong to the truth and how we set our hearts at rest in His presence. If our hearts condemn us, we know that God is greater than our hearts and He knows everything. When I focus on what others can do for people in need, rather than what God requires me to do for others, I tend to fall into the trap of lip service. You know what is lip service? Lip service is just to talk without action. We sometimes feel like people of little faith, feeling that we might not have enough ability and capacity to fulfill God's mission. Breaking more for Jesus' love can refer to various real-life situations where individuals or groups have transcended barriers and obstacles in the name of Christian love and compassion. An old scientist lamented a large group of starfish washed ashore during high tide. The starfish will die soon if they cannot return to sea shortly. The scientist stood by the sea, watching until he saw a young boy picking up starfish and tossing them back into the sea. The boy noticed the old scientist and ran up to him, saying, "Sir, please help me. We need to throw this starfish back into the sea before they die." The boy then bent down, picked up another starfish, and threw it into the sea. The scientist look at the entire coastline, ask the boy, do you see how many starfish are here? Can our efforts really make a difference? The boy looked down at the starfish in his hand and thought for a moment, and then said, well, it makes a difference to this one. He kept on throwing the starfish into the sea. This is how Jesus loves. Jesus doesn't only love the Jewish, he loved all people in the world. He walked through Nazareth, Galilee, Samaria, and Jerusalem. He loved every person one by one, entering into the lives of those he met, demonstrating love for people. Today, Jesus doesn't tell us to love everyone, but he tells us to love those people around us. And this is what Jesus will want us to do. God is greater than our hearts, and he knows everything. God's actions are beyond our comprehension. Number 3, we learn from this passage is living in God's love and loving one another. Is in 1 John chapter 3, 21 to 24. Let's read it together. Dear friends, dear friends, if our hearts do not condemn us, we have confidence before God and receive from him anything we ask, because we kept his mind and do what pleases him. And this is his command, to believe in the name of his Son, Jesus Christ, and to love one another as he commanded us. The one who keeps God's commands live in him, and this is how we know that he lives in us. We know it by the Spirit he gave us. What does it mean to live in God and God in them, and he live in him and he in them? What does it mean? Live means to dwell together. In John chapter 1, 14, it says, the word become flesh and make his dwelling among us. Full of grace and truth, we have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only Son. Jesus spent his whole life focusing on the people around him, wanting to love them in the way they needed to be loved. God has given us the greatest freedom to love one another, the freedom not to always be self-centered. Acts of kindness towards others may be short-term and well-intentioned action. Working together with others may involve common goals and ideals. However, it's only when we are with others for no specific reason, not desiring any particular outcome, but simply because we see this person as someone loved by God. Let me tell you a story. In October 2018, at a Pittsburgh synagogue in US. You know what is a synagogue? Synagogue is a Jewish temple to worship God. Robert Bowers Robert Bowers entered the synagogue and killed 11 Jewish people with a gun, injuring 6 others. He was also injured and taken to the hospital. Three of the hospital staff, including a medical doctor and 2 nurses who cared for him, were Jewish. One of them named Ari Mala. Robert expressed his gratitude for Ali's care and the kindness Ali showed him. Ali made a different choice, choosing goodness and compassion, choosing to love his enemy. No doubt, Ali followed the Bible's teaching. Love means everything, including loving one's enemy. Brothers and sisters, have we followed the teaching of Jesus? Jesus asked us if we want to be with him, if we can live the life Jesus lived, if we can love like Jesus did. Both Jesus and John say that Christians need to have that kind of love for one another. To conclude my sermon today, A World Without War, we learn 3 things. Number 1, God is the foundation of loving one another. There's 1 John chapter 3, 16 to 17. Second, fearless in doing what to please God. 1 John chapter 3, 18 to 20. Number 3, living in God's love and loving one another. 1 John chapter 3, 21 to 24. In conclusion, the lesson of loving one another is challenging to all of us. Christian love is a really practical matter. It isn't just words, it's action. Use what you have to help others. Love is what Jesus did, laying his glory aside and pouring out practical love for us when we were needy and helpless. In God's love, let us learn to love one another and serve the people God places in our life. Brothers and sisters, may we strive to be a wall breaker as Christians, breaking through the invisible barriers, restrictions, obstacles, and divides in our hearts and minds with the love of Christ. Amen.